Hello, beautiful soul beings, spirits, and other meat sacks on the earthly plane, and those otherwise joining on the interwebs, on the dark net, in the astral plane, connected to the electromagnetic field on Earth, like hooting and hollering to everyone who is witnessing this. Um, Thank you so much for tuning in. And today, slightly different topic, specific topic, which I feel called to share. Um, and not it may be in a way where it's just like this is not necessarily like I received a channel message for the collective and was told this is for everyone, this is for the collective, you must share, but in a way where I had my personal experience and it was so strong and it was something that I knew a lot of people could resonate with, and I can't shut my mouth. The spirit knows that. So I was like, okay, I'm eventually going to share this with people. And so this is something that's actually been on my mind for some time, and I struggle and battle with depression and anxiety and all kinds of PTSD, like every single form of PTSD, 'cause I just have a lifetime of trauma, and trauma just doesn't stop, just keeps on coming and it keeps on coming, right? Um, and so because of that, I found myself in a place from like really being like, I love spirit. I love divine source energy. I can feel everything. I can feel the earth. I went from like that to being kind of depleted, kind of burnt out. And then also being like, sighing like, I guess, yeah, world peace is coming, is possible. Yeah, I guess, everything is better with love. Yeah, I guess I know I am made of love and connected to love. I am love itself. Yes, I guess I just need to love myself more. Need to so then it just became like very like Eeyore energy, if you are familiar with Winnie the Pooh. And not to say I've like snapped myself out of that because when you're someone like me who like lives on your own and you tap into stuff and you end up having a spontaneous Kundalini awakening and you're not prepared for it, and you don't take care of your body, eat or take your meds for several days, and you end up in the hospital like I was, and you end up on medication that affects how your brain works. So I'm still adjusting to that, and that's definitely affecting my mood as well. Um, and it's definitely affecting um kind of how I used to. I'm familiar with communicating with spirit. Um, but I've also been on this medication for a while, so it's really like the adjustment period. And then also like remembering the failures of the flesh. I use that phrase because it's a song from the Hair soundtrack, the musical Hair, and we are in the age of Aquarius. And there are, if you're really into musicals, let me tell you, like there are a bunch of musicals that like literally are prophetic and are talking about spiritual things, even though that is not what they're advertised as, that's what's happening. And so, the musical Hair, I only know like songs. Like I've never seen this musical. I've performed songs in showcases and like musical theater showcases in school, and I've seen snippets, clips here, but I've never actually witnessed the musical myself. So all I know is like the time period it's based off of, it mentions real people like Timothy Leary, um, who was, was an academic and an activist who is really pushing towards just like not criminalizing the use of hallucinogens. and also studying the therapeutic use of hallucinogens as well. Back in the 60s, is it to early 70s? I might be a little off on that, but definitely 60s, 70s. We have Vietnam War happening at this time, which was really big deal because, a lot of Americans were actually like kind of forced. If you were eligible, you had like almost no choice practically to enlist in the army for the Vietnam War. Um, and the people who fought that war then are still alive today with a lot of trauma in their own right. And then there's still war going on internationally, right? Whether we call them wars or we call them other things, violence is still happening globally. There's still this war on drugs, and a lot of it is like it goes back to plant derived medicines. Um, and also the symptoms that people are trying to treat are still not being addressed by society, right? And that's that people are in pain. People are in pain. Why are they in pain? Because they don't have love in their lives. They feel unloved, unlovable. They have physical pain, from chronic illness. They have emotional pain, from their lives and possibly from being psychic empaths, um, not knowing that they're picking up on other people's energy and emotions too. There are people who just had it, and I've been there, and so for me, to be in this energy, in this place where I'm like, oh, depression again? Depression, you are back. It's like opening my door and being like, come on, you, you again. It's not even sliding into my DMs. It's kind of like a family member that comes in from out of town and is like but it's like not even a family member. My therapist described this as a toxic friend. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's the friend that's like ready to talk smack about everyone, including you. And it's like, wait, is this supposed to be encouraging me? You're supposed to be my friend, and you're here bullying me? What? I guess I'll just stay in bed all day. Glad I'm able to have a sense of humor about it. That is definitely on the up and up. Um, but I pulled these cards last night, and I want to pull some more cards possibly today. So I want to talk about um this phenomenon. You don't have to know the words or understand the terms such as light worker, earth angel, star seed. You don't have to understand these terms, know what they mean. Maybe they resonate with you, maybe they don't. Um, but things I'd like to talk about is the fact that we're all special. We are all special, even though it doesn't always feel that way. And it's really important to know this, to remember this, if you have, whether your friends are mostly internet based, virtual friends, or if you meet up with your friends in person, you know, or however you socialize, or maybe it's on forums, it's like strangers are your friends, that we're hyping each other up, especially when we find someone part of the pack is if someone in the pack is down, then we want to lift our homies up, right? Because it is really hard when you're in this place of depression or compression it's like being buried alive. To be honest, it's like being buried alive. Um, and so it's like, even if it's at the beach and you're under a bunch of sand, and even if your face is not buried, depending on how much of your body is buried under sand, like you actually can't dig yourself out. of the sand. Like you are completely helpless. And um that I think is a metaphor for like how depression and anxiety and trauma and these deep places of grief and despair can make us feel. And for me, I am someone who, before all the trauma started in my life, although you can argue that the trauma was inevitable and it was there from the beginning, but there's a period in my life where I'm like, this is where the big trauma meat is. Like the meat of my trauma, the biggest traumas are like, in the middle there. But there was a point in my life where I was so optimistic. I was like, well, you know what? This is not my business. This is between my parents. My parents aren't getting along. That's their business, not mine. Like I genuinely think that's what almost went through my head as a kid, but I didn't even think all those thoughts. I was just like shrugging and being like, oh well, I'll just, do my own thing. And I was born an only child, still an only child today. So for the few years I lived with my parents, um, they had a tumultuous relationship, but I kind of hung out with one of them at a time usually. Um, and so I really got just this sense of love and sense that the world is my oyster and that I could do what I want from a young age. Even like these are what my parents are instilling in me. Like my parents are telling me I'm special. Then I started going to school. I started reading and speaking at the age of 2 because I have autism and I'm hyperlexic. Um, my reading comprehension is crap, so don't come for me. So I can speak a lot of words, but I don't understand half of the crap that comes out of my mouth, which is great and wonderful and hilarious. Um, but I remember feeling like, especially from teachers, even throughout my life, when my home life changed and started to be a little bit more traumatic, teachers at school, even if it was just one subject, a couple subjects that were my best subjects in school, which were usually English and theater. Although for certain levels of math, like algebraic math, I was a boss at algebraic math. After that, like geometry, statistics, I was like, this isn't even math anymore. Science, like chemistry, I was like, this isn't even, what are we talking about? This is art. This is art now. This is like you're combining art, science, and math now, and in real world applications, and my brain is just not having it. Um, which is really funny. But I did really well in school, and mostly that's because of the way that teachers always made me feel special and whatnot. And then when I got to college, there's less of a feeling of being special because I had to work my butt off for every opportunity I had. It was more like they recognized my work ethic and respected me, which was more than anything. And then that's like a very practical, like masculine, left-brained way of looking at it, a way of experiencing and narrating that is being like, oh, I didn't turn in my assignments, but because I slayed the first several weeks and couple months of class, these professors know who I am. They know I'm a diligent hard worker. They know I'm super smart. They know clearly that I am marginalized by society, the government, and probably got personal things going on. And then I eventually had an accommodation plan for disabilities the last couple of years, even though it didn't even cover like majority of disabilities I have, it gave me the leniency um to basically have that in between myself and the professors to say, hey, look, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna try, but I don't know how far we'll get. So I say all this to say, like, when I started even reading cards, I didn't think, one, that I would become like an expert reading cards. I still do not believe in that because I don't read the cards. Two, I did not know I would be an energy reader, like naturally, and that was more my style and my approach was reading energy. Three, I did not know that psychic mediumship would be available to me, um, especially without necessarily practice. Um, yeah, four, I did not know I would be able to clearly channel spirit, especially when I had not been necessarily the best at meditating in traditional senses of the word and the practice and the ideas of that, right? Like, what is meditation? What is prayer? What are these things? Spoiler alert, meditation and prayer are whatever you find them to be in your life. Which is why I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening because I was like, oh, what? Nah, oh, come on. I wasn't expecting it, but I surrendered. I surrendered and I like really needed this, y'all. Like I really needed this. And then all life blew up, visions after visions, prophecies, like the things, the signs, symbols, synchronicities were popping up so hard. I was tripping out. Like I was tripping out like I was on hallucinogens, but there was nothing in my body. Went to the hospital, they put me on psychiatric medication, other medication, and I was still like tripping out. And now I'm like, then I came out of the hospital and I was like still tripping out. And then there are days where I feel like, man, is it over? Because I'm on this medication. And then I have days where I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the little high, right? And not everything I'll say spiritual has to feel like you are hallucinating on drugs. In fact, I don't recommend that. I don't recommend that you go in the directions where it feels like you lose yourself, because that can be really difficult. But all that is to say that then I found myself in moments where I'm like, well, I enjoy the simple pleasures of life. I enjoy the simple things in life. I enjoy nostalgia. I enjoy memes. I enjoy, I am like ultimate millennial core whatever. Cottagecore, vaporwave, love it all. So ultimate millennial, I'm like a fan of millennial culture, millennial pop culture, from the 90s, especially to the early 2000s and 2010s, because it's my life, 90s baby. Um, but everything from, my birthday to things I watched when I was a child to things I watched recently as an adult, there are signs and symbols and synchronicities everywhere. And I'm just like, is anyone else seeing this? Is anyone else? Is anyone else? Like, I literally am watching even cheesy movies that are supposed to be cheesy, right? That they're like, oh yeah, this is a little satirical. But I'm like, there's no way this movie is actually as deep as I am interpreting it, because this movie feels like it was written for me, because I'm having this emotional visceral response to it. It's hitting home for me in ways where I wouldn't think. This movie is about God. This movie is about this movie is about this and that. And that was happening to me like before this hospital journey and afterward. And the fact that it also happens afterward is nice, because then it reminds me of like, right, not crazy. But also I'll take that. I'll take that. They want to call me crazy and psychotic, they can, but I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And it's wild because it's like choosing. Sometimes it's a choice, right? Especially when you're in the place of depression, compression, isolation, despair, grief, anxiety, right? When we're in these negative places, it's so much harder to notice the positives. in our lives, to notice the signs, symbols, and synchronicities. I mean, they could hit us like a bus and we still would be like, what was that? Huh? I'm a little tired. I didn't catch that. Um, and in those moments, no, it's not enough to pull us out. But if we want those types of things, whether we associate it as spirituality, spiritual wellness, connecting with spirit, with divine source energy, if we want to recognize signs, symbols, and synchronicities as serious, if we want to take them as important, if we want them to boost our mood, then they will and they can. So something I wanted to share, which is really important, because for me, like this exploded in this beautiful way because I was literally watching a bunch of channelers, and I say that to be like they're channeling spirit, they're channeling source, or mediums, psychic mediums, right? People, they may or may not use cards at all, tarot oracle cards, but they are not reading these cards. Let me tell you, they are reading energy. Some of them come with the message. Before they pull out the cards, they're like, I already have a message. I heard this. Like, what do you mean you heard it? What do you mean you heard it or saw this during a meditation? It's like, yes, yes. If that happens for them, then it can happen for you if you want it to happen for you. Now, say for me, like I was going through my own mediumship journey at the same time, and there were like certain things where I was like, I don't want to see no dead people, I don't want to talk to no dead people, and I was like pretty pretty adamant about necromancy. Um, right, but you know, if it happens, it happens. I will say I have seen poltergeist and experienced poltergeist phenomenon. Thankfully it's been lighthearted, so I want to keep it at that. Um, and there's some people who like, they practice and they study, and some people kind of just wing it like me. I love winging it. I love keeping things open. I love being non-judgmental, and I love just taking my time with the experience of being quote unquote self-taught, which is weird when you think about the fact that we all have these gifts. But it's kind of like being an untamed baby superhero, right? It's like, oh, I know I can do all these things 'cause I was born with them. Like we're all born with them, but mine are like popping off like when I don't even try, or I feel emotional and then boom, fire shoots out of my hands. It's like, oops, just burnt something to the ground. Didn't mean that. But also didn't know it was that powerful. Wow. And so for me, there's, things I need to work on. But even if you, let's say, are like, nah, this isn't for me. I like watching the videos, but I'm not gonna try messing with no dead people or spirits or anything like that. Like that's okay. But then also protect yourself, because if you feel drawn to a lot of these things, then you're gonna hear messages that might be intense for you. Some things might hit extra home for you. And also like just be careful, because it's kind of like be careful what you wish for and what you don't wish for, because the more you manifest not wanting to go down a certain road, you find yourself already on the path. Um, but so I would just say, spiritual protection for folks out there. And that can look like just intention in your mind's eye, in your brow chakra, and your crown chakra, or you can say in your head, in your heart, in your gut, whatever strikes your fancy. Just make sure you have protection. You can use some crystals and smudge, Palo Santo and sage and incense and all that stuff too. But if you don't have the money or the resources, or just don't feel like doing it that way, you know, the power of thought is really intense. So you can just use thoughts, think, think, and you can like create a bubble of protection around yourself, an energetic bubble of protection through the sheer effort of thoughts. So keep that in mind. Um, but something I like to bring up is that on my little journey, what I discovered was like, holy crap, I'm special. I'm like part of this prophecy, this revolution, this next thing. And then I keep hearing more and more mediums talking about it. Bashkar's talking about it. Bashar, I mean, is talking about it. I was like, how do you say his name? Bashar, through Daniel Anka. Daniel Anka is the medium. Bashar is the extraterrestrial that he channels. He's been channeling for years, which is wild to have a connection with um being not of the earthly plane for years. Like that's so intense. Um, you gotta wonder, like, do they have each other on speed dial or um, and so anyway, why I bring this up is that I also kept feeling like, okay, but there's something where it's like not just me, or I couldn't figure out, well, who am I? Am I a main character? That's so much pressure. I don't want to be like the main character. Like I'm not trying to be, you know, the next Messiah, like Jesus 2.0. Like that's so intense. Cannot handle the pressure. If that's what it is, okay, whatever, I'll make do with it. But then I started getting more conversations, and I was like, why does it feel like the way these mediums are reading and the way, like, who they're all reading for feels like they're talking to me. But then I look at the comments and everyone else is like talking about different lived experiences. But the message themselves is like, this pertains to me. And then this thing happened in my life. This pertains to me. This is what happened in my life. And I'm like, wow, that didn't happen in my life, but this pertains to me so specifically. Can't ignore it. Of course, there are also messages in those collective channel messages that aren't for me or don't resonate, and that's fine too. But then it came to the point where then I was in these, spaces for divine healing and connection, healing the divine feminine retreat. I went on with Mirabai Star, um, is led by Mirabai Star, who is a spiritual person and author. And what I love is that instead of being secular is not the right word, it's more like polytheistic. Yeah. So and I resonate with that. I came from being raised to go to church, and then I did convert to Christianity, and then I found myself in Buddhist spaces. Well, I found myself actually being an agnostic and atheist, and then I found myself in Buddhist spaces, and then I found myself like converting to Islam, and then I found myself like, still tied, having this huge connection to Judaism as well. And then I also do relate heavily to the story of the Israelites, um, as well back in Egypt, and like, old soul stories. Also, folks who've been reincarnated and have lost like lineages along the way. But if I could break down like all my beliefs and belief systems using existing faiths that are like formalized with, a word like Buddhist, Christian, then I would come up with like an astrological chart where I'd have a sun sign, a rising sign, a moon sign, and Black Moon Lilith, a midhaven, all these different things. I don't even think I know enough uh like the like theologies or philosophies or faiths or religions to fill out a whole chart. But for example, that I believe in a lot. So when I read, I tend to read really open, really in a secular quote unquote manner. And that's not to say that it's like blasphemous or that I'm not thinking about God, but it's kind of like, well, I'm respecting the gods, the deities, the ascended masters of all cultures, right? Because I believe that, they all the ascended masters were incarnated for basically the same reason and the same message, and people didn't get it. So then they had to incarnate it. So then like new ones were incarnated, and they were incarnated in different ways. And then we have prophets. In some spaces we have shamans, and other spaces, depending on, you know, what culture someone resonates with, comes from, identifies with. They'll have different thoughts on this. As a mixed person who's mixed all up, I have a lot of resonance with a lot of different spaces, faiths, and ideas of this. But for me, it all comes back to all being a part of one, the same oneness, the same. And so when like one person hurts, we all hurt. When one person is suffering, we're all suffering. Um, so I'll cut to the chase and bring out some of the cards that I pulled for myself, which led me to want to make this video now, as opposed to the fact that I haven't made it previously. Because then this kind of freaked me out. This is only some of the cards, but I got this archetype card, the Starborn. And I was like, whoa. It's also card number 3, which in tarot is for the Empress. And before this, in this deck, it starts out card 1, the mother, card 2, the father, card 3, the Starborn. What I pulled out from my music tarot deck was Yoko Ono and John Lennon as the lovers. There's a serpent wrapped around the tree, and they're each holding like these blossoms, these plants. And then they're holding hands, and of course they're already covered up in leaves. And what was interesting about that, then I have the snake charmer. Talk about serpents. We have the snake charmer from my Britney Spears Oracle deck. From the Nordic Light Oracle deck, we have rainbow clouds. We have golden ticket. It says opportunity. All right, that's giving like I got the golden ticket, Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory energy. We have communication with the drawing of a whale. We all know that whales, they have their songs and their sounds in the ocean. We have no idea what they're saying, but we know they talk a lot. They be communicating. They be communicating. And then another card that I found significant, again with the Britney Spears Oracle deck, the Blue Jean Queen. This to me, it just screams Americana. It screams Y2K. It screams not just, you know, double denim, Britney and Justin Timberlake. When they like were a couple, I'm pretty sure it was like the VMA Awards, MTV Awards, that they showed up dressed like that together. But they definitely have done double denim and denim significantly in different ways. And I also have this denim rug outside my door. It's upcycled denim that someone's sibling made like by hand with dozens of jeans, upcycled jeans, making them into a circular rug. And I remember this person was moving and going to throw it away, not even donate it. And I said, "What are you doing? This is art." And I'm so glad I kept it. I've had it for 4 years now. And then thinking about Levi's, you know, jeans, you know, iconic brand of jeans. And not just for the industrial, like blue collar worker, which it kind of started out as, but of course, jeans and denim is now super iconic and fashionable, and you can wear cheap jeans, and it's just considered vintage now. Of course, with Britney Spears, we with the blue denim, we also have Beyonce's Cowboy Carter, that also Americana. and with Britney Spears with the Snake Charmer from the Slave for You music video. Although here she's performing live because she has her Britney mic on, as we call it, the wireless mic. She has a real snake that she's holding, and she's performing with it. I've performed with a pantyhose snake before on stage, so that's funny for me. But I also think like, hello, like there is a snake and the lover's card, and like, but you are Britney Spears, the snake charmer. So it is, so if you're the snake charmer and you're the starborn, to me, it to get that for myself. I'll say, right, I pulled these cards for myself, which were intense. If they relate to you, amazing. My parents were star-crossed lovers. They were like lovers that like never should have been together and were together for far too long. So that is John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Like in their own right, like some people like John, great for them. Some people like the Beatles, good for them. People with taste like Yoko Ono. Personally, I'm more of a fan of Yoko Ono as a visual artist, a conceptual artist, a performance artist. I admire her work deeply. Resonates with me. The Beatles, I could give less of a crap. But I think they did shape a lot of pop culture, like how people choose to be fans and what a fan base can look like and be like, since they were pivotal in that. And I'm glad at least I know, I wouldn't really say I get what the hype is about, but like if people talk about the Beatles, I'm at least glad I understand that pop culture reference. Um, Not something I care about that deeply, but they stole a lot from Black people. So noted, noted. But anyway, let me see if there are other cards I want to pull. So something that to me, you know, that I got, something that I was also thinking about was when I was going through my dark night of the soul, and then I was thinking of the Joker, because then I felt like the Joker in Dark Knight, the Batman movie, specifically Heath Ledger's Joker in the Dark Knight in the Nolan film. And when he does this monologue that's like, want to know how I got these scars? And it's so tragic. To me, I felt that hard, and it reminded me of how, well, everyone always wants me to make them smile, make them laugh, but I've been through hard stuff, and yet I like still have to put on that face for people. I still have to um do that. And so for me, I was an emo kid. I still struggle with depression and anxiety. So for me, when thinking about the fool in tarot, the fool's journey, being the hero's journey, I think about myself as the fool, a court gesture, a class clown. Because I'm, a silly little guy. Um, it's not offensive to me. But then I also think about myself as like an unlikely hero. Um, and so I posted a video a little while back, a couple weeks ago, about unlikely heroes. It's called like the misunderstood emos and something else. So that's the title. So people who kind of felt like outcasts, literally exiled from friends, family, community, or just otherwise have felt othered. And for me, that is how I have seen this journey. Um, Something that for me is, it's really hard is um thinking about like what my signs and symbols and synchronicities have been. Um, Princess Diaries, Blue's Clues, Big Comfy Couch, Lilo and Stitch, TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but the fact that TikTok exists and from a early age, I was dancing around my living room, and then I listened to Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. Yeah, all I want is to dance with somebody, and I live alone. I feel like I have no friends, or friends are too busy to hang out with me. But then there is millions of people dancing on this little app called TikTok. It's connecting the whole world together. And I feel like, oh, I'm not alone. Like I'm when I dance, I'm not alone. So when I dance, like no one is watching. Who isn't watching? My spirit team is definitely watching. And if I want to post something on the internet, it's not about what the view count actually looks like, because it's never accurate, right? Um, there's something beautiful there. And then Blues Clues is a really deep one. But for me, every time I see a sign symbol in synchronicity, and I'm like, blues clues. Balancing act, dances on one foot. We have kind of this, there's like this butterfly moth. This one is literally has a human body with wings. So it is literally dancing on one foot with one leg stretched out, kind of like a ballet dancer. But it's like the kind of moth butterfly that blends in with leaves, um, with its greenness. That's card number 9, 9 signifying completion. Also mirroring 6 for harmony. Protecting the future, Dragon's Hoard. Ooh, card number 12. That's a fancy ascended number. Dragon's Hoard. This is a dragon kind of with dragonfly wings, interestingly enough. And it's coiled up, it's got keys dangling, it's got like this planet, where its like womb would be, and its tail is wrapped around, kind of cocooning it really tight, and there's this orb of light in the center of what appears to be a planet that's slowly bursting open, evolving, protecting the future. Wow. Oh, I forgot to say, so in all of my like recent spiritual things, something that's been coming up is that it's not a casual thing to say, but I don't want this video to go too long. So folks don't always like watch the whole things, but um that the collective, a collective, the collective, as I like to call us, so folks who feel spiritually connected, aligned, similar values. It doesn't really matter about identity or experience, it's just about similar values. What do you believe in? And these this will be like the next Messiah. It won't be just like some white dude. It won't just be a singular person. Especially after like all this time, like it's gonna be a little more intense than that, right? Lay of the land, ancestral wisdom, drifter, experiencing life as it comes. Those cards are unclear, so not gonna get them out. See if there's anything for this deck. Got a jumper. Card 55, the farther gate bulls step forward. And so it's pretty much a gate in like a canyon. So we see like the kind of the walls of it being in the canyon alley. And you have the first gate is open, and then there's the gate that's like further down. but then you have like this beautiful light that's coming in closer to you, shining on you, and then this kind of second light, second sun star that's further back, further past the second gate. So there's still like more room, not just to grow, but to discover, to learn, which I love to hear. Because I never want to be at the end of anything. Um, but also like take charge in your life. Like the bold step forward has to come from you. Like there can be a nudge if you want a nudge, if you want help with the motivation, but who's really going to take that step? Who's going to be responsible for that step? And that is us, our own bodies and our own free will. We have Sky Bridge, possibility for union. And this is like going up to this, well, it appears to be the sun or even like um Mars, because it's just that much heat energy, but it's radiating like the sun. And there are almost like these towers of bricks on either side. They're like skyscrapers, but they're made just of stones. And then there's like a stone staircase leading up to this really, really bright sun, possibility for union 47, which is reduced to 11 master numbers. Beautiful. And so that sometimes has to do with the sense of self, union with the sense of self, or sometimes divine union outside of ourselves. Sometimes soulmate and twin flame reunions and unions, I should say, or reunions if you have previously been together in past lives, I should say. Um, those can be friendship connections, those can be business connections. And so important to know that that's also what union looks like. Garden of Venus. So this is a garden full of lots of purple flowers, and it's kind of like an archway with dangling gems. There's like a hummingbird passing on by. It says Garden of Venus, rest and renewal. Venus, I believe, is ruled by Libra. Or is it Taurus? I mean, Libra and Taurus. It's ruling planet for Libra and Taurus. Or rather, it rules Libra and Taurus, not that Libra and Taurus rule it. So, but if you have significant Libra or Taurus signs, which I do, um, I mean, these cards resonated with me really strongly, and maybe cards I pulled earlier resonated with you in your own way. I mean, your parents don't have to be like star-crossed lovers, like in this Romeo and Juliet way, because that was intense for my parents. Like my parents really intense lives. But I say all that to say, is like for me, like I'm an artist, but I'm a little nobody. I don't really get many views on the things I create, but then I want to do more things in person. That's like my good gooey spot. And sometimes I don't always have the biggest audience either. Um, but it's a matter of like who's in the audience and who appreciates what I share when I share. And I just appreciate having a voice and knowing that I can say whatever I want when I want. And knowing that I have that right against censorship, which is really important to exercise for me, because I have been silenced in the past. But for me, I forget, right, that I'm special. I forget not only that forget being an artist, forget being a medium. I forget that I'm special, right? We are all special. We are all, if you want to believe in God, you want to believe in any higher source, divine source, the universe, Big Bang, whatever it is for you, just know that you are loved. You are loved by humans in your life, and they're not necessarily always like people you know well. That doesn't mean they can't love you and can't express love towards you if they are radiating love. If you don't feel love with family or friends, or people who say they are family or friends to you, know that there is there are so many people out there who also feel the same way. So you can even connect to an online group, a peer support group, a meditation group. You could do classes online. You could do artist residencies, virtual or in person. There's so many ways where you can find your people if that is important to you. So I encourage you all to love yourself, but also know that you deserve love back, and to experience it from other people is really special. Because sometimes when we aren't as close to spirit, we don't just like find love in like everything and aren't just like crying all day long, like filled with love, making fun of myself with that because I will literally just, spend hours crying just having like auto shuffle my for music and being like, "Oh my gosh, it's God. God is sending me mixtapes, DJing for me. That's awesome." And that's my experience. But I definitely, of being of the flesh as well. I definitely understand the appeal of having real humans who are also of the flesh, who understand what it's like down here on Earth, how miserable and torturous it can be on a geopolitical level, on a personal, independent, individual, personal life, intimate level. Um, this suffering runs buck is about, it's bountiful everywhere. This is suffering. So I encourage you to, find what works for you, but just know that like regardless, we are all this egg. And so especially if you're connected to me and my videos, but you don't even have to be doing spiritual things or doing anything you think is for the good of humanity, but except for just being a decent human being, treating other people with respect and kindness. We can do that. That doesn't sound so bad. Treating other people with respect or kindness, or minding your own business, like when you can, it really goes a long way. It really does. And not just for karma, but for the future and for the near future and the future that we are, protecting, trying to protect and to preserve for the children who will come after us, for, the next millennial generation, in a millennia. Like what will that be like, in 1,000 years from now, in 3020, you know will humans still exist? Maybe, maybe not. But we have to think about, the animals and plant life as well. And um, that makes me think about their future. I'm not an expert, but if you care about animals and plant life, definitely encourage you to check out farms, community gardens, anything near you where you can get involved, either on a volunteer basis or donation basis, anything that will just nourish your soul, um, really on that spiritual level, spiritual plane. So I hope this helps, and I hope you all remember how special you truly are. Shine bright and don't ever stop. Peace and light.